If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This is Long Shots, VSiN's premier golf betting podcast. Here's Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, and Kelley Bydlon.
Yeah, all right, welcome in. It is Long Shots. Kelley Bydlon, Wes Reynolds here with you this week. No Matt Brown. We gave him the week off. He's got stuff going on. It's okay. We're all busy people. Wes Reynolds, speaking of busy people, busy hitting outrights on the PGA Tour, my friend. How you doing? You done counting all your money yet from last weekend? Last 2 weeks?
I'm doing okay. Would like to count a little bit more going back to back here early on. So at least got some momentum early in the season. And look, maybe it's easier to hit some of these things when you don't have to deal with Scotty Scheffler winning all these times. So we don't know when he's going to be back. The early returns were Pebble Beach, perhaps next week, but not sure as of yet. We don't have a field announced so far for that. So look, I'd like to see him back out there because I like seeing great golfers in the best play. But from a betting standpoint, nice to not have to deal with them.
The worst part about this possibly for you is that there could be some confirmation bias a little bit, right? Like we all think, oh, Scheffler's not in the field. Like, good, we can bet some of these other guys, maybe get it home. And now you've had 2 weeks in a row where that some of that's possible. So you might just end up screaming it every time you see a field release that's got Scheffler in it at this point.
Exactly right. And look, golf betting's hard enough. We talked about it last week with Nick Taylor at the Sony Open. Like, that's probably a one I got that I shouldn't have gotten. Right. But we have the other way around, whereas like last week with Sepp Straka, you felt like he was the best of it.
Smooth sailing.
Had a 4-shot lead at one point. I was monitoring. I think the lowest he got in the final round was like minus 250 when it was a 3-shot lead with about 8 holes to play. He had gone bogey-free, I think, until like the 70th hole of the tournament. Had not made a bogey. Had hit, I think, every green in regulation of the round on Sunday until then. And, was able to hold on for a 2-shot lead. Nobody really could catch him. The only way he was going to get got is if he made a mistake, which he did make bogeyed 2 of the last 3 holes, but he was clear over Jason Day and Justin Thomas and those guys. So Sepp Straka, 3rd PGA Tour win. Nice hit for us at 60-1. Let's keep it going.
He has a Diet Coke problem. I saw him in an interview the other day say he drinks a minimum of 4 every day, somewhere upwards to 9. So always interesting learning about some of these guys. But Sepp Straka, man.
Yeah, well, I was going to say he's losing his hair too, so he's like shaving it, which I'm trying to pull off.
but like you said, 3rd time he's won on tour. Someone to keep an eye on. I think you, Matt, and I have all bet him at different points over the past couple years, and making some money off him. Great ball striker. I think someone to definitely keep your eye on for the rest of this year. I think we're going to hear from him again. But that is 2 outrights in a row for Wes. We are going to get into the Farmers Insurance Open here. Reminder: it is a Wednesday start, so yes, we are kind of normal time recording for the podcast, but this does start tomorrow on Wednesday. They are getting out of the way for the NFL Conference Championship games. That's why they start a day earlier here on this tournament. I like it, Wes, except for I seemingly have forgotten every single year of the past 3 years that I quickly get reminded on Monday somehow that it's going to be a Wednesday start. And I got to scramble to get all this done and all of our work.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a time squeeze this week because, of course, we had the national championship game on Monday with Ohio State and Notre Dame. So betting that and focusing on that, and after you watch and bet the whole college football season, you pretty much have to at that point. And then, a very, very quick turnaround, as you mentioned here, a Wednesday through Saturday event this week at Torrey Pines.
Yeah, so we'll get to that in a sec. I do want to discuss, though, real quick, just heading back to last week, because I got a couple tweets about it. I'm sure you did as well. And look, it's a constant topic throughout. I think if you're betting golf throughout the season like we are, and it's hedging. I think we deal with this at VSiN as a sports betting network. We deal with this topic a lot when it comes to other sports. And I think there's different answers for different people and for different sports as well. With golf, I'm a bit more of a believer in it. Lock it in profit. If you're grinding on this week in, week out, if I have a guy, I don't know if Sepp Straka is the perfect example because he did, what do you have, a 4-shot lead overnight heading into Sunday, West? Is that what it was?
Yeah, and we were asked, yes, it was, and we were asked about that as well. Like, hey, what do you do here? And I'm like, I got to wait to see how this round starts. Like, I don't want to add a bunch of guys where it's like, this guy's got a 4-shot lead, and maybe he could run away because they were all on the South Course, by the way, on Sunday, which was the most difficult of the 3 by far. Not the South Course, Stadium Course, I should say. South Course is this week, which we'll get to when we break down the Farmers. But the PGA West Stadium Course was the hardest course because they redid some of the greens, made it a little bit more challenging, whereas La Quinta and the Nicklaus Course were easy. But everybody, after they had the cut on Sunday, made it to that course. So it's like, yeah, after Saturday's round, I should say. And, I was like, well, I guess he theoretically could be caught, but it's a lot tougher to shoot 62s and 63s on the stadium course. So I wanted to be a little cautious. I ended up not hedging because I was like, I'm going to wait and see how the round starts, but I never had to get out of it. And, that's fortunate because even with the Nick Taylor last week in the Sony, I had to take a piece of Nico Echeverria in the playoff just to cover, at least give myself some coverage and at least get a small profit, even though Taylor was going to be the bigger profit. So yeah, look, I think that's always an interesting topic, and it's kind of, there's no universal answer, I guess, for it.
There's not. There's really not. I think there's different tournaments present different situations as well. I think this one was a good one to talk through. If he was a little closer to the field, I think it's more interesting because whatever. Right? We'll say where he was at. He had a 4-shot lead. I think the important thing to point out is for a lot of people that are listening, rest of country or watching rest of country, if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. You don't have the same outs that we do with Circa providing no prices on these guys overnight, which is it's just great. It really is, and it probably leads me to hedging a little bit more than I would getting those no prices when we've got a guy who's heading into the final round with a lead. I think I probably would have approached this situation like you did. The problem, not the problem because it's a good thing, but you got a 4-shot lead on the field on a course that's playing relatively easy, and then. The problem is, if you don't have the no option like us, you've got a bunch of guys to choose from that are all bunched, right? Which really means you have no options. Really means you have no options. And I think that the only way you could handle that, and if you weren't going to take a no price here at Circa, was to go into that final round, see what plays out. If one guy maybe creeps up and gets close to Straka, fine, you've got a cleaner hedge situation live if you want to do that live in that final round. But you really didn't have to end up worrying about that, so no problem. Just thought it was a discussion I wanted to have quick because I don't know about you, but I get a lot of questions about hedging. And it's not always with golf, but I think with golf, I want to be pretty clear about where at least I stand and then how you handled it, obviously, the past couple weeks, which you didn't really have to this past week. So that's always a good feeling. But like you said, you get into a playoff. It's kind of like I don't know how you do it with college basketball, Wes, right? But if I got a bet in the NBA and it's going to overtime, I'm usually buying off half my position at least immediately. It's just overtime you're talking about a much shorter part of the game. You don't know exactly what's going to happen. Playoffs are kind of similar when it comes to golf. That you're shrinking down your entire handicap of this event. Gets to go play out in one hole, possibly, or 2 holes. It's just not worth leaving it all up to risk, especially when you got a lengthy ticket. So I don't know about you. That's kind of how I approach it in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm somewhat similar. When you're doing more derivative betting too, you're doing like first halves and second halves. Those are also ways to do it if you don't get the necessarily pure live wager, but. There's different ways to do it. And then, especially if you're trying to work middles, like mainly with totals, not as much so with sides. There's a lot more variance in the totals. But, yeah, that's kind of how I approach it a little bit either. So I know, and I love the saying, hedging is for gardeners, but we also want to make money here,
Right.
and sometimes look, as bettors, we can let hubris get in the way because it's not just the money, it's the idea of being right. Well, sometimes, you got to lock in profit, and the long-term goal is to make money in this game. Cashing tickets is what it's all about, or so I've heard.
Yeah, this is. I just think for golf, and look, it's different for each person. For me, we're trying to grind out profit week to week, and it's not. I don't care about what you did in 1 week. I care about what you did at the end of the season. I don't care about what you've done over the last few seasons. I'd rather rack up that profit when I can. All right, we head over to Farmers Insurance Open. Reminder again, we tee off tomorrow, Wednesday morning, in the AM. I think I saw the earliest tee times about 8:50 our time, Pacific time. So about noonish on the East Coast. If you are watching on the East Coast, we will play 2 courses this week: Torrey Pines South, Torrey Pines North. We're going to split that up for everybody. We're at full field. This is a 36-hole cut. So what we're going to do is everybody's going to play one of the courses round 1 or round 2, and you'll go, and then you'll switch for the second round. You'll play whatever course you didn't play in the first round, and then we're to Torrey Pines South for Friday and Saturday, third and fourth round. Screwed up days already, Wes. I'm sure that won't become a problem.
Yeah.
So we go to Torrey Pines South for the last 2 rounds to close this out. Now, it's Torrey Pines South, the only course with ShotLink data. That is the one I usually focus on the most amount when I am looking at this event. I will say I guess there are some trends that guys that have performed well in the North course have fared pretty well here. But any thoughts on the courses from you, sir?
Well, one thing, if you are playing first-round leader, you want to bet somebody that's on the North course on Wednesday because that is a substantially easier course. I even ran a grid in the article kind of comparing the years. Like, I'll just take last year, for example. The South course, the average round played about 3 strokes higher than the North course. That is the Tom Weiskopf design. That's the shorter course there at Torrey Pines, about 72, or let me get the official yardage, 72.58. Meanwhile, Torrey Pines South is 77.65. That is the longest course, regular course on the PGA Tour. The fairways are a lot more narrow, so it is much easier to score on the North course than it is on the South course. So maybe there's a potential draw bias there because I think not every one of the guys that I ended up playing on the futures board this week starts on the North course, but I think more of them do, because I just think getting off to that better start and then you play the South course, assuming that you make the cut for the weekend, which in this case is Friday, Saturday, you've got 3 rounds in a row. You want to get that early round because the guys that got to play at the second day, which in this case is Thursday, they're already behind for the most part. And they're looking up at all these guys that shot 7 under, 8 under, whatever at the North course, and they were grinding it out to like shoot even or 1 under par there on the South course. So, because the course record on the South course, by the way, is still Tiger Woods, all the way back in 1999, where he shot 62. Meanwhile, you look on the North course, that record has been set like 4 or 5 times over the last 5 years. So that tells you that is the much easier scoring course.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think be careful. First round leaders. This is much like last week. I think most shops will chop this up and split it in half. I'm looking at DraftKings right now. So they go lowest score on the North course and then a separate market for the South course. So be careful. Like Wes is talking about, if you find a book that just got first round leader, yes, you definitely want to target North course. I think the shops, though, have wisened up to this, Wes. I think they're basically all splitting it for South and North leader after the first round.
And that's a smart thing to do because look, just a couple distinguishing not only just the length at 500 yards longer, but 5th narrowest fairways on tour on the South course at about 28 yards average. The greens are smaller on the South course than they are on the North course, and they're also faster, and the surface is different. This is POA versus bent grass, and we know POA, especially the West Coast POA, Kelley, a lot more unpredictability. A lot of you'll hit a pure putt, and all of a sudden you'll hit a bump just right before you get to the hole, and it veers off 3 or 4 feet to the side. So, that's something that you're going to have to look at here. South course it's a long walk too. It is a physical grind when it's almost 7,800 yards. So South course is going to be much tougher scoring conditions, you would think, even though we haven't had a lot of moisture lately. Of course, if you've been watching the news, you know that in Southern California. So the rough might not be as challenging as it usually is, just because it's drier. It's not wet, so it's not as thick as it normally would be without the moisture. So maybe that's going to be a little bit easier to chop that out this week.
Yeah, any of the video, if you're watching at home, this is all video of the South course. Basically, all this everything that I was talking about here, details wise, are all South course. Just to run over a quick couple notes, like you said, this is the longest course on tour. Joins Muirfield Village. If you look at courses that are over 7,500 yards and greens smaller than 5,000 square feet, I'm excited for this event. I get excited every year for this one, Wes, because Wes isn't tired of the Birdie Fest, but if you're tired of Birdie Fest, you ain't getting one of this week at Torrey Pines. This will be a true test of every club in the bag. We've seen it play out here in the past. You've got to be long off the tee. You got to be accurate off the tee, because these fairways aren't very wide, about 20-yard average on the fairways on the South course. You got to be accurate because there is 4-inch ryegrass rough off to the side that you're going to have to contend with. Greens are smaller, like I said. Putting, POA specialist, yes, you want to look at that a little bit. Around the green play here always comes into play, though. Around the green and scramblers, very important. If you kind of look at past winners, Wes, you could probably divide this, pretty evenly about, okay, hey, these guys are bombers off the tee, or they are around the green specialists, and those are the guys who have usually ended up coming out winning. So all of that, we're going to talk about our stats here in a minute and everything that we looked at to punch into the models, but it's kind of one of those courses where everything's important, and we're going to really find out this week which of these guys is in true form heading into the season.
And to your point, and I'll bring some previous winners as good examples. Like Luke List, hits it pretty long off the tee. John Rahm certainly hits it long off the tee that have won here in the past. But you've also had scramblers win here, like Max Homa, who's a really good around the greens California guy. More on Mad Max later. Patrick Reed, another guy very good around the greens who won here back in 2021. Brandt Snedeker, another guy that's not really a bomber off the tee, but a guy who's won here twice that's very good short game. Same with Jason Day. So, yeah, you got to kind of commingle all of that necessarily. Distance certainly is a help, though, especially on that South course where it's almost 7,800 yards. Yeah,
just a couple of trends I saw from your piece up at VSiN.com. Make sure everybody check out weekly Wes's write-ups for every tournament over at VSiN.com. I don't usually bring these up too often because I don't think they're very predictive trends, but I think some of these make sense. That you had 26 of the last 31 winners had at least 4 previous career wins. Okay, what does that tell me? This is a tough course, tough field. Guys that are better guys that have won before are the guys that go to this course and usually win. 20 of the last 23 winners had played in at least 5 previous Farmers Insurance Open events. Okay, this is kind of one of the first courses we get to where tournament history matters a little bit more, but with how tough of a course it is, I think a lot of guys have erratic history here, right? You could pull up, Homo's probably, I think, a pretty good example. Finau's played here pretty consistently well, right?
Yeah.
But you're going to find a lot of guys that, he's got top 20 finish, miscut, top 20 finish, miscut. Hey, there's a lot of that because of how hard this course plays. But you want guys, I think it makes sense, 20 of the last 23 winners had played at least 5. Look, guys at least getting used to this course rotation, the South course in particular. That's what I'm looking at. So usually, I thought those were interesting. I don't usually bring up the trends very often, but I thought those were pretty good ones that you included in your piece.
Yeah, and if you look at in recent years now, Mathieu Pavone was the outlier as he won on debut here last year. But your experience and I think long-term course knowledge really matters here. And this is a classical type of course, especially the Torrey Pines South course. So, there's a little bit of correlation with Augusta National or Riviera or Quail Hollow or, some of the longer ones that they're played for like majors like Bethpage Black, just for the length, but also their classical course designs. These are tough courses. These are not courses that, especially the South Course, where you see a lot of 20 unders. I think one year in 2019, because the weather was like Justin Rose won at 21 under. But by and large, you look over the last 5 years, 13 under, 14 under, 15 under. And a lot of that damage is done on the North Course, where maybe those guys shot like 8 under or something, or 9 under, and then they kind of like, hey, if you get in with like a 70 or a 69 on these South Courses, those are hell of a rounds at the end of those rounds.
Yeah, totally. Quick notes, weather watch, not really much wind first round there. You can see not a ton that you're going to have to contend with on Wednesday. I mean, really quiet, actually. Looks like it's going to spike up later in the afternoon on Thursday, but not a huge concern for your first couple rounds. You head in the weekend on Friday and Saturday. It looks like it gets a little bit more wild, but Friday's still pretty calm, so maybe we'll have an interesting final round, but nothing too much to worry about on that front. Head over to the odds board. I know I pulled it up if you're watching at home, but run through this quick for everybody that's listening. Look, Ludwig Oberg is your short shot. I am on the first round scores, though. Ludwig 9-1, Hideki 11-1, Sungjae 18-1, Keegan Bradley 22-1, Will Zalatoris 22-1, Tony Finau 22-1, Jason Day 25-1, Max Grazerman 25-1, Sahith Theegala 28-1. Everybody else 30-1 or longer. Wes, I want to talk through stats that we looked at. Top of the board, though, real quick. I don't know if you did anything with Ludwig or Decky. They would be my top two guys. Yeah, they would be my top two guys, except for Ludwig was the one who rated out way more consistently for me. Right. I think he should be the favorite. I think this course fits him really well. I'm not going to be shocked if he wins this week, but I think there's still some questions about, sure, health stuff from last year. Is this his first event of the season? He played at the Century. He played the Century, okay.
I believe. And while you were talking about that, Xander Schauffele and Colin Morikawa were supposed to be in this field this week.
Yeah, Century T5.
They both withdrew. There may be, Century T5 and then finished T6 at the RSM to finish 2024. But I don't know why they withdrew. Morikawa was citing, an injury or something. But they may play this course in 2 weeks. It looks like they are going to, because
that's
they're
been
not
announced, right?
I think that's official now. That now they're not going to play the Genesis at Riviera, which of course is right there in Pacific Palisades, where obviously the devastation of the fires has been ongoing. So Riviera is going to be played here at Torrey Pines in 2 weeks. So maybe some other guy's going to play that, because look, this is a tough course. Look, you got some guys that are very highly ranked. Like, you don't see Rory here this week. Mm-hmm. You don't see some other top 10 guys here this week, even though it's still a pretty solid field. It usually is, but it does feel like it's a little bit down from years past.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we can say it. It just is. It's down between Liv and some of the other guys you just ran through. It's definitely down. There's no doubt about that. But I love this course. We're going to see it again in a few weeks, like you said. I love that. Mix it up a little bit with some of the birdie fest that we get bogged down in and kind of get tired of talking about. Hey, approach is important here. Whoever makes your putts makes your putts. Right?
That's all you got to do, right? Yeah.
That's all you got to do, right? Wes knows that. He picks the guys to do it, so just follow whatever he's playing in those. Run through what I looked at quick, and then you can add on top of that. Look, total driving here for me, both distance and accuracy going to be important. I didn't necessarily weigh one more than the other. I think that you'll hear interesting cases for either side about why it matters more here, whether you're further, whether you're more accurate. The rough's long. I think depending on who you listen to, they might make it seem more or less challenging than you think at 4 inches. But, again, that's where it's going to start the week at 4 inches. It'll grow out a little bit from there. I looked at both. I think accuracy is almost just as important here off the tee as distance, especially when we talk about the smaller greens. just the cleaner look to set up, avoiding some of that around the green play, I think is very important here. So, look, total driving is something I weighed very heavily this week. Strokes gained approach, like we talk about all the time, and then the proximity buckets for this week. I really started at 175, Wes. I don't know if you did anything different, but what really is 175 and then more, because it's going to be a lot of long irons for any of these guys. And then just real quick, a little bit of POA putting for me, and around the green and scrambling, one of the tournaments I'll weigh it heavier at. So those are kind of the main ones that I looked at this week. Some par 5 scoring as well, because those are really on the South Course. The 4 par 5s, really the only holes that you're going to see play consistently under par. So I think that's important this week. What did you plug into your model, my friend?
Very similar for me, total driving. And what I've been doing in the article, too, is I've been using the data from this season, but also including last season, because we only had 3 events. So, once we have, I think, maybe close to 3 months or 2.5 months on the tour, then guys have played kind of the equal amount of events, and then I'll just take this year's data instead of using last year's data. But total driving, scrambling for me, I think scrambling is going to be very important, because you're going to miss these small greens, and you're going to be pitching and chipping out of this 4-foot rough, or 4-inch rough, basically.
4 inch.
So that's really 4 foot would be really difficult. But 4 inches.
Wait till the Open, okay?
Yeah, exactly. We don't need it now yet in January, but yeah. Look, you're going to be having to chip out of that rough, and that's going to be difficult. So I felt scrambling was important. You can also use around the green. I did use approach as well. I did a little bit more 200 plus. I think you can include 175 to 200 if you want, because
I laddered up from 175. Yeah,
the majority of the shots are going to be long irons, and that's not shocking when it's almost a 7,800 yard course. POA putting, like a lot of weeks, I know you and Matt are kind of team no putt. I usually include it very, very small. It's a little bit bigger this week because you're playing 3, assuming you're contending on the weekend. You're playing 3 rounds at Torrey Pines South, and these are pure POA. These are 12.5 on the stimp. They're fast. They're bumpy. They're unpredictable. It's a lot different than the POA that you see on the East Coast, like at the Travelers there in Connecticut, where that's a little bit more pure, a little bit less bumpy. And then, excuse me, some of the POA that has bent grass with it, this is pure POA. So putting for me, bogey avoidance, because you can drop shots in a hurry here. And then par 5 scoring.
Yep, like it. All right, cool. So we'll plug it all in. We see what all got spat out back for bets. I will start quick, go through my outright card here. I only got 3 outrights, but this is the first week where I started to dive into top 10s and top 20s as well. Willie Z is where I started, 24-1, available here in Las Vegas at Circa. I think 22 was the best I saw elsewhere, but I would play it at 22. I think Willie Z's been pretty impressive here recently. T12 last week at the Amex, T26 at the Century. A lot of questions with him entering the season, just how is his back going to hold up? How is he going to look here early? And really, you go back to kind of late August, and he's played pretty well. So I think I'm confident in the form that he's in right now. And that was probably my biggest question with him heading into the year. And so to see 2 good finishes to start the season is pretty quality from Willie Z. And then plus he's got all the great course history here. T13 last year, miscut before that, solo second the year before that at T7. That's just what he's done his last 4 appearances here. So an outright and a top 20 on Willie Z for me. Max Grazerman went down to him at 25-1 next on the outright card. For me, we've talked a lot about this guy really end of last year on the pod, and then beginning of this year, it feels like me, you, or Matt has had him kind of every week. I just can't fight the numbers on this guy, and he keeps finishing well. It's T7 at the Amex, was T24 at the Century, 9 top 25 finishes in his last 11 tournaments. He's doing it consistently now, and not that this guy's been a mainstay on the PGA Tour for years, but man, just to see what he's done in the last 11 tournaments is pretty unbelievable. Looks not the best with the long irons in the field, and that is important this week. But everybody's going to kind of have a hole in their game for what they're going to need this week. That would be his weakness, I guess, Wes. But good off the tee. solid approach numbers overall and putts well on POA. So kind of all the things that you're looking for to check the boxes this week. He doesn't have a ton of the course history here. Miscut last year was his really only start with him here before at this course. So I'm going to keep riding the hot hand, see where Grazerman takes us this year. His guy would rather be early on than late, I think. Right. And that's kind of where looks like he's heading right now. So an outright in a top 20 play on Grazerman for me. And then the only other outright I played, and then I played this with a top 10 as well, as Shane Lowry. I got a 40-1 here on him in town. You can find 35-1. Man, this is a guy he hadn't played a ton here recently. He had a T25 last year. Before that, you got to go back to 2018 to find the last time he actually played this course. So recent years, not a ton of experience here. And this is his first time he's going to tee it up on the PGA Tour this season. So there are some questions from that standpoint, Wes. But, man, you're talking about a guy who's great off the tee, plays hard courses well. We've seen him play well here pretty consistently, even if it goes back some years. He's not the greatest POA putter, maybe not the best around the green and scrambling, but still pretty decent numbers in those categories. So I was really surprised where Shane Lowry was showing up on the odds board. Frankly, I wasn't shocked where he was showing up on my model because it was pretty damn high, but a little surprised where I was finding him at the odds board. 40-1 seemed long to me. I played a top 10 on him. My reasoning for top 10 versus top 20 here is we haven't seen him, right? So either he comes in and he's playing as great as I expect, and he's right there in the mix come down the stretch, so I want to have that top 10 protection, or I'm way off on him, right? And maybe he's missing a cut or something like that in his first event on the tour of the season. So top 10, aiming high, and then an outright for him. Just to finish out my card really quick, Alex Smalley, a guy who really popped for me this week. Good around the green. Recent results, 11th at the Amex, T16 at the Sonys. Has gained in every statistical category so far this year. So Alex Smalley's definitely a guy I got my eye on. Now, the finishes at Torrey Pines, maybe not the best, miscut here last year. T37 in 2023, T56 in 2022. But another guy I'm just going to kind of ride the hot hand with right now. I did not play an outright on him just because you ran through the list of guys who've won here in the past. We talked about some of the trends. Look, good golfers win here. This is usually what ends up happening. Yes, Matthew Pavone got it done last year, but I don't expect that to happen every season, though. So a top 20 on Alex Smalley, you're going to find over 3-1 on that. And then the other guy that I played that, I mean, if I trusted my model a little bit more, I would have done more with. But Joseph Bramlett, plus 475 for a top 20. I'm going to swing high on him. Look, he's got good course history here. Rates out pretty well in my model. Great ball striker. It's just the putting and around the green stuff that he isn't able to put together consistently. So, but I'll go back to the well with Joseph Bramlett, who lifetime Wes has still earned me money because I think I hit a first-round leader with him at the last Honda Classic, whenever that was, like 2 years ago before they changed names. So Joey Brams, he has still made me money. So, again, outrights for me, Zalatoris, Grazerman, and Lowry. Top 10 then on Lowry. Top 20s are Zalatoris, Grazerman, Smalley, and Bramlett. And that is my whole card. I looked at matchups. I don't know about you, but we've talked about this past couple weeks where, hey, for me, it usually starts with just some outrights till we get a little bit more data on these guys. We get a little bit further into the season. Now I've started kind of adding some of the top 10s and top 20s. Matchups I checked out to see if there's anything that I really thought was off, but nothing really stuck out to me this week. I think matchups are the thing that I end up betting the most throughout the year, most money on. However, I think you need a little bit more time in the season to develop before you know, hey, I'm not only going to bet on this guy, but I'm going to bet against this other guy, right? And maybe there's some guys that I'm targeting that I think are going to go positive this week. I'm not quite as certain who's going to go negative this week. So matchups I'm going to leave alone. Just start with some top 10s and some top 20s to add on to the outrights. All right, my friend, let's get over to you. I don't know why I buried the lead. We got to get to Wes Reynolds and get to the winners on the outright card here.
Well, on your Lowry, by the way, I think maybe it's priced that high because he hasn't played since November at the DP World Tour Championship in Dubai. Did not play the Dubai Desert Classic last week like Rory and like Tyrrell Hatton, who, of course, won the event at 9-1, Tommy Fleetwood, and a lot of the kind of bigger star European players. So he is making his debut this week. Maybe that's the cause for the drift on Lowry. We do actually match on a couple, and we'll start with the first one.
He won at the TGL, though,
matchup.
He won the TGL a couple weeks ago.
Oh, that's right.
That's got to count for something, right?
Absolutely. Still in action, and we wonder if that's affecting some of the withdrawals. But look, we haven't had a signature event yet either. Like, guys aren't going to withdraw from the $20 million events unless there's like real injury concerns. But starting
look at how he tore up the fall though on the DP World Tour. Like, it's just. You go back.
Sure.
He's one of the guys that played some of the most golf too here most recently. So I get he hasn't played the past few weeks. That is a concern of mine. There's no doubt about that. And Wes is right. I think that is the sole reason why we see his odds where he's at. But you know what? I'll try to get in early. Well, if they're going to give me a good price on Lowry. So, all right, go ahead, my friend.
Absolutely.
Sorry. Let's get to your bets.
You're fine. First one we match up on, and look, this is going to be really popular. This is one of the more popular ones out there, I think. Will Zalatoris, I got 25-1. It's 22 now, mainly in the market. We mentioned he's got some scar tissue. Remember, he lost the 2022 Farmers Playoff where he should have won the event, and Luke List just did a bullet. On the playoff hole. Luke List is really team no putt and one of the worst putters out there consistently. But when you're a bad putter, hit it to 2 feet. And that's exactly what he did and won the event. T12 last week for the Amex for Zalatoris, but he did gain strokes putting in all 4 rounds, which is a big deal. Zalatoris is shaky with the putter. He was 132nd last year. So I think this could be a place to get right for him. Previous success here. Another guy who's got previous success here, how about a guy that won here a couple years ago, and that was Max Homa. He's got 6 PGA Tour wins, 4 of them, by the way, in California, and on POA greens. Not a very good 2024, separated from the swing coach. He had 3 top 10 finishes, but showed some signs of coming back to form at the Century, where he was 26, but he was 4th in greens and regulation. I think he tends to show up on like the harder courses. Like Max Homa, I don't think wins a lot of like Birdie Fest. He don't win a lot of events where you're going to have to shoot like 25 under just to contend. But at Riviera, Quail Hollow, very good performance at Augusta. I think a couple years in a row he's been in the mix at the Masters, and of course the win at Torrey Pines. So Max Homa 36-1. Then another guy that I think should go very well here is Beau Hosler at 50-1. Still trying to get that first victory on the tour. Orange County native, now I believe based in Texas, but tends to get off to really good starts on the West Coast swing. He was T6 here last year, and then he was top 15 at Pebble, top 25 at Riviera. 5 top 25s in 7 starts during the fall swing, including that loss in the playoff to Kevin Yu at the Sanderson Farms, and T12 last week at the American Express. Very familiar with Torrey Pines. It goes back to his junior golf days, where he actually won the Junior World Golf Championships on this course in 2011, and then was runner-up the next year to a guy that's also on my card that I'll get to momentarily. Those were both played, by the way, on the North course. Now that there's the familiarity still, I think the point remains the same with Torrey Pines. Beau Hosler 50-1. Our other match, Alex Smalley 85-1.
There we go.
Never has finished better than 37th here, but I'm riding with form. Recent form more so than course form, and I'm giving this one a chance. This is a little bit more of the flyer, I think, on my outright. T16 at the Sony, 11th at the Amex, 4th in strokes gained tee to green for the young season. So I'm going to say, okay, this guy's going to, continue his good form here. So Alex Smalley, 85-1. And then the 3 longer shots. How about Gary Woodland at 90-1, who we know last season he was working back from the lesion on his brain, so he literally had brain surgery in the fall of 2023. So he only had, I think, 1 top 10 and 4 top 25s, but if you look at the early returns, he was T16 2 weeks ago at the Sony, was 5th for strokes gained off the tee, and he can still hit it out there with anybody. He is still very much up there if you looked at separated the driving distance rankings from total driving. Still one of the bigger hitters off the tee, and that weapon, I think, could play dividends here. Very good, sneaky West Coast swing player, despite the fact that he's from Kansas and doesn't live out on the West Coast, but won the 2019 U.S. Open at Pebble Beach, 5 top 20s here in his career at Torrey Pines, T9 at Riviera 2 years ago, and also won the Phoenix Open, the Waste Management, back in 2018. So a guy that's played very well on the West Coast swing in previous years. I did tease who beat Beau Hosler in that 2012 Junior World Golf Championships at the North Coast. course, and that answer is Rico Hoey
Yeah.
at 100-1. Rico Hoey, a Southern California guy, born in the Philippines, but raised there. Still resides in Rancho Cucamonga, which is about 90 minutes away from San Diego. Played college golf at USC. He was actually the 36-hole leader last weekend at the Amex with Charlie Hoffman before he had some poor putting and tumbled him down the leaderboard. Led the PGA Tour, by the way, in total driving last year, and who was second? Scotty Scheffler. So if you're beating him in any category based on how he played last year as the player of the year, that's a feather in your cap. So he's got a big hitting game off the tee. I think that's going to fit well at this course. Rico Hoey, 100-1. And then one more 100-1.
Just
I
pulled
talk
it
about
up
how
too, Wes.
veterans...
Sorry, he's currently first in total driving right now on tour as well. So Rico continues to do it. He was a guy that I looked at a little bit too.
Yeah, Rico Hoey, 100-1, and then another one at 100-1. I talk about experience here, and some veteran guys have won here. You know, guys in their late 30s and guys even into their 40s. Here's another veteran. It hadn't won in a while, but I think this could be a spot for him. Harris English at 100-1. 2 top 10s and another top 15 late in the season in the fall series. Started a bit slow with the miscut at the Sony, and then he was T43 at the Amex. But by the way, for the 2 measured rounds at the stadium course at PGA West, led the field for strokes gained off the tee. And I think that's going to be important this week. You're going to have to drive the ball well, stay out of that rough as much as you can, but bomb it away as much as you can down the fairway. So Harris English, I think, can certainly do that. If you recall back in 2015, he lost in a 4-way playoff here to Jason Day. Jason Day, by the way, a 2-time winner here. Day was in the mix a little bit just behind Straka. Never could catch him at the Amex. So I've seen some Jason Day support this week. But, you know, Jason Day, last couple of years, I haven't been able to time him. It's like, okay, here we go. We got a couple good finishes. And then I follow up, and then I play him, and then he's like 52nd or something. It's like, what happened, man? You're right there for a win, right?
So I am glad you brought him up, Wes, because I was probably going to bring him up at some point here, because it is, I mean, look, you can't ignore what he's done at the course over the years. And then yes, it's small. It's a small sample size, but what he's done this year's been pretty impressive. I honestly, Wes, been one of the more impressive guys from what I've seen, at least so far, out on the golf course this year. You know what, though? The odds made it easy for me to pass. They're pricing him again, pretty dang short I think shorter than where Jason Day's game is probably truly at. But who knows? Maybe I look like an idiot this week on a course that he's played very well over the years. So I'm glad you brought him up, because I think he's a guy that was at least worth discussing here this week. I ended up passing, but anybody betting him, I understand why. I get it why.
Yeah. And Harris English was the runner-up in the playoff to him in 2015. Harris English, too, by the way, third here in the 2021 U.S. Open, which, of course, was won by John Rahm. So, and that was the toughest of the setup that you will get at Torrey Pines South in a major championship. One other guy that you mentioned I did want to bring up, I did consider, and I think his price in the 20s is fair, but I didn't end up getting there with Tony Finau, who probably, if you look at a form sheet, has as good as anybody here at the Farmers Insurance Open. He is a regular here. He has played well. I bet him here a couple times and fallen short. 6th last year, 9th in 2023, was 2nd in 2021, 6th in 2020, 6th in 2018, 4th in 2017. But he's been dealing with an injury. It kind of leaked that out. He kept it a little quiet, leaked that out last week at the American Express. He's been doing some knee rehab in the off season. So that scared me off a little bit. He's also starting on the South course, which the tee times are out, and that's going to be the tougher of the 2 courses, as we know, throughout the week. So I did consider Tony Finau. I think he's getting bet in the matchup markets against a couple of the golfers that he's matched up with. They're kind of near the same price on the outright odds board, but I stayed away. He missed the cut at the Amex. Now that's not the reason that I would leave him off. I wonder about the injury, though. We know he's had the live rumors. I think he's tried to put a kibosh on that, but you never really know, Kelley. We got to be skeptical, because we've seen the denials and the non-denial denials before, and then they happen. But I tend to think he's not going there. But certainly you have to deal with that and getting asked about it, and it plays on your mind. And then, of course, the knee injury. So, maybe Tony Finau, if he shows a little bit of promise on the South course, if he shoots like 2-3 under, then he's going to that North course where he can just absolutely score low. Then I might be able to add him on an in play, but I considered him, but I eventually, in terms of the shorter shots, went with Zalatoris.
Yeah, it wasn't really a guy. Look, his finishes here are undeniable for what he's done over the past several years of this course. Probably his best course, right, Wes, of where he plays at on tour. But yeah, the injury stuff was enough for me to say, you know what, I'm okay. Missing out on a Finau win here early. I'd rather know for sure that he's healthy before I go betting him too much. So I'm with you. Another guy that was worth discussing because of how well he's played here in the past, but no bet for me. All right, did you get through all your plays? You got anybody else to hit on?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. No, the 7 deep this week.
All right, 7 deep. Recap those real quick for everybody, Wes.
Yeah, Will Zalatoris at 25 to 1 in the market. He's 22-ish. I think that's fine. And then Max Homa 36 to 1, Bo Hosler at 50 to 1, Alex Smalley 85 to 1, Gary Woodland 90 to 1, Rico Hoey 100 to 1, and Harris English 100 to 1.
I like it. 3 outrights for me: Will Zalatoris, Max Grazerman, Shane Lowry. A top 10 on Shane Lowry. You'll find that. I got plus 350. Somewhere over 3 to 1 is good. Top 20: Zalatoris, Grazerman, Smalley, and Joseph Bramlett for me. All right, that's going to do it for us here on Long Shots this week. Reminder: if you are listening to this on Wednesday, guess what? It's too late. If you're listening to it Tuesday night, make sure to get your one and done's in, get your bets in here, because we are starting bright and early Wednesday morning for this first round. All right, for Wes, I'm Kelley. We will talk to you next week.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.